Good morning, friends. It's Sandra Clay. I'm the pastor at Cook United Methodist Church. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to our patio. There are raindrops still dripping from last night's deposit on our tree here, but the birds are loud this morning, and for that I am very grateful. So good morning, Stacy. Good morning, Tawana. There's Ruth, and so many of you will be popping on. I have to say that I'm not going to be talking about where we are in our reading plan today. My heart is broken, and my guess is that yours is too. Matter of fact, I've stayed underneath the tree here, even though as the breeze blows, I feel drops, falling on me. I almost feel like God is weeping with us. But so glad you could join us too, Gwen. I know that you're waiting and watching, and so many of us are. But I want to, as a warning too, I feel like I need, for many reasons, to share some hard things with you. And so for those of you who are tenderhearted or for whom violence might be a trigger, I just need to warn you that I feel like I need to speak to this, not just for myself, but for all of us. So these are the words that I would share today. I'll post these two verses a little bit later on, after we've closed our time together. I'll go back and give them as a reference. But from Lamentations, the very first chapter, Lamentations, by the way, is exactly what it sounds like, a continual lament. In the case of what we find in Scripture, it's for those who were surprised by the exile after Babylonian conquest, the destruction and the devastation there. But in that first chapter, these verses 10 and 11 describe not just Uvalde, but all of us right now, particularly our brothers and sisters in Uvalde. The elders of daughter Zion sit on the ground in silence. They have thrown dust on their heads and put on sackcloth. The young girls of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes are spent with weeping. My stomach churns. My bile is poured out on the ground because of the destruction of my people. Because infants and babes faint in the streets of the city. That is how we feel. For goodness sake, when a basketball coach, ahead of a crucial game that could be the next step toward the pinnacle of a great season, is overwrought with anger and frustration. For Steve Kerr to be the one to scream, not only enough is enough, but do something. That's where you and I are. And so I also want to claim this truth from the Psalms as I invite you to sit with this pain. The promise is this from Psalm 34: the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. My friends, for us to claim this promise for ourselves, in addition to those who are crushed in Uvalde, Texas, is our work today. Our work is to grieve. Our work is to feel what we feel. Our work today, the liturgy of the people, the work of finding how to give what we feel and what we think and what we wonder and what we fear over to God is important work for us to do. Do not close your ears or your heart to what is going on. I just want to begin to share it this way. When I see, particularly yesterday, and I don't know why more yesterday than sometimes in the past, but particularly yesterday, I see those pictures of frantic parents and grandparents and hear their cries off camera. I see the tearful reporters who have practiced being stoic and strong no matter what the news. When I see those hyper-vigilant first responders of every flavor, behind the scenes but on camera doing their work, I am transported back to December the 1st, 1997. I had moved to the Paducah area to serve a church in June of 97. And on December the 1st, the first day back to school after Thanksgiving break, I received a phone call from a student at Heath High School who was a part of our youth department, our youth ministry. And her words were so garbled underneath a frantic cry that was creeping out of her voice with every word that I could not understand what the tragedy was. But I knew that Beth was saying to me that she needed me. And so I made out the name of the hospital, and that's where I headed. Not knowing where to begin to look for her, but I knew something was happening when I drove into the parking lot and there were all manner of law enforcement vehicles and emergency vehicles. This was not just maybe a family tragedy, there was something bigger going on. I heard with the voice of a distraught high schooler tell me what had happened at prayer meeting before school that day, instead of hearing it on the news. I mean, it's been forever ago. It will be 25 years this December. But when I see those pictures on the television like I did yesterday, when I hear the numbers, it doesn't matter whether it's 3 like it was at Heath, and 1 is too many. Then I also see lying in a crisp, clean bed, a young woman with a bullet hole in her forehead, kept alive until her daddy could kiss her goodbye, kept alive until her friends could say their goodbyes. A pastor standing outside the room, not me, but another pastor, not able to, or I don't know, to help kids deal with these questions that we were dealing with too. Why? What? How? Really? I didn't realize I have so much sensitivity still to this until I heard another pastor speak from Uvalde and say something like this: there's always going to be tragedy in this world. We live in a broken world. But if our best work, friends, is to love God with all that we have and all that we are, and to love each other and to love ourselves, When will we begin to love the Salvadors and the Michaels of this world enough to keep saying, I think there's something wrong here? Please don't hear me blaming parents, other administrators, folks. I think we all don't know exactly what to do. But when will we love our children enough to say we're not doing enough? When will we love ourselves enough to say we are not doing enough? I'm not willing to walk down the road today of arguing that this is all about gun control, or this is all about how we make entrance and exit from a school safe. All of that's got to be considered and looked at. But when we again and again, well, listen to these dates. This is what I carry kind of with me. In April of '93, I can remember seeing, perhaps for the very first time, I think, the Branch Davidian horror unfold in Waco, and to think about the kind of mass destruction because of violence there. Only 2 years later, the Oklahoma City bombing on April the 19th, same date. 2 years later, I have family in Oklahoma. I have friends in Oklahoma. I've driven those streets in Oklahoma. My first introduction to thinking, wait a minute, that could have been me. Maybe it was a friend. And that frantic feeling of trying to make sure all my people are accounted for. It was 2 years later, past that the Heath High School shooting happened. And we've still not mentioned Columbine, which was 2 years after that. We've been through this enough, my friends, that we cannot become numb. You've heard that from other newscasters. Now you're hearing it from a pastor. We cannot become numb to this. I was texting with a friend who has another memory in that same Western Kentucky area, but in Marshall County, Kentucky. There was a shooting in 2018. Our minds and our hearts, because of the trauma that we are experiencing, have experienced, my friends. We go back to those places, and we need the kind of healing that can come only from God. But God is trusting us to love well enough that this stuff stops happening here. That it stops happening to anybody. I'm struck by this too. Uvalde is about the size of Goodlettsville or Dyersburg. If you are aware of either of those towns, then you know. You may not have a student at Robb Elementary, but you know somebody who works there. You know somebody who has a child there. You know somebody who used to be a child, a student there. You also drive by that school, and you can't imagine what it would be like for you to discover the one piece of news everyone is frantic for but doesn't want to hear. That it was my child. Whether we're talking about Salvador or whether we're talking about those whom he killed. Please, not my child. When will we love fiercely enough that we will not turn away so that our tears dry and our hearts mend, only to wonder the next time, where's my child? Where's my child? My guess is I have rambled more today than I have spoken my pain or asked for companionship for solidarity in my anger and in my pain. I do want to be brave enough to do two things real quick. Words of a pastor friend from a sermon some time ago, but even more powerful now. And then what I heard with my heart's ears this morning, that will be a call for you and I to do something. My friend Johnny posted this today, and it is true, I believe. Unless and until thoughts and prayers are met with manifest actions to ameliorate the conditions giving rise to the need for thoughts and prayers in the first place, we're really only saying, better you than me. We folks just ought to say that. That's more honest. May that not be what the world hears in my prayers. May that not be what the world hears in your prayers. When will we realize that they are our children? All of our children. This is what I have noticed on camera. No matter who the reporter is, no matter what part of the story is being told. And I'm going to chalk it up to the sweetness in that small town. What I have noticed is they've got one loud rooster close to where the boundary has been drawn where people can gather. They got one loud rooster who has crowed behind every reporter that I've heard, and even that pastor I mentioned. I heard that rooster crowing loud still this morning. My friends, keep crowing. It is important, number one, for us to continue to talk through our grief and to let our pain heal, if it will, by God's help, so that we are helpful and loving to our neighbors. And until that happens, we need to keep crowing, not bragging, but we need to crow like the rooster in Uvalde about what we believe and what we will stand for, what we will no longer tolerate, and how we will protect one another. I offer this apology. I know my words aren't gathered or pretty today. And it's going to have to be enough to just say that I am broken over this. But I know that you are too. You have children and you have grandchildren. And you let go of tiny fingers from your own hand, trusting that whatever they walk into that day, they will know safety and protection. Days like yesterday remind us that is not a promise that we can always keep. What will we do to try? What will we do more to try today than we did up until yesterday morning? Thank you for loving me through the tears. It's going to take a lot more love for our brothers and sisters whom we don't know in Uvalde. Oh, thanks be to God that God already knows the lament of our hearts before we struggle to find the right words or the courage to say them. Thanks be to God that His promise is sure, that He is with and for the brokenhearted, and He saves the crushed in spirit. Save us, oh God, from ourselves. Save us from the brokenness of this world. Save us from the lies of the enemy, sounding as if they are true. Save us. for love's sake.